We need to be aware of that. 1 Timothy 1, 3-20 says, "As I urged you when I went into Macedonia, remain in Ephesus, that you may charge some that they teach no other doctrine, nor give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which cause disputes rather than godly edification, which is in faith. Now the purpose of the commandment is love from a pure heart, from a good conscience, and from sincere faith, from which some, having strayed, have turned aside to idle talk, desiring to be teachers of the law, understanding neither what they say nor the things which they affirm." Verse 19, "Having faith and a good conscience, which some, having rejected concerning the faith, have suffered shipwreck, of whom are Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I delivered to Satan, that they may learn not to blaspheme." And so you have the Apostle Paul, he's talking about two individuals that have gotten off into some weird doctrine. Now, they had done so because they had rejected a good conscience. For he says, "Having faith and a good conscience, which some, having rejected concerning the faith, have suffered shipwreck." So these two individuals had started, if you go look at the context, they started to preach that the resurrection had already passed, which is obviously false doctrine. Their consciences convicted them not to do that. They overrode their consciences. And because they had overridden their consciences, they had weakened their consciences and were thus becoming more and more bold in proclaiming the false doctrine. And so Paul says that they had rejected a good conscience in this area, because the conscience will guide us in that area, because to preach false doctrine is evil in God's eyes, and so the conscience won't allow you to do that. But these individuals overrode their consciences and thus weakened their consciences. And Paul had to eventually step in and actually deal with these two individuals. He delivered them to Satan so that they could learn not to continue in this practice. We won't elaborate on how he did that. But the point is that here we have Christians overriding their consciences and thus continuing down a road that then weakened their consciences even more, wounded their conscience. And so believers can certainly wound their own conscience and weaken their conscience if they choose to ignore what their conscience tells them to do.